What is up, everyone? Piscean here, bringing you another Astro book. This is an advanced Astro book crafted with the help of my AI agent, Perplexity. Shout out Perplexity. I suggest you try out their app. Their computer tool is very, very useful, very, very cool. And in this video, we have a 55-page textbook we're going to go over. It's very comprehensive, so please like, subscribe, comment, share if you're doing care with peace and love, and let's jump into it. So it says Advanced Astrology, Origins, Omens, and Cosmic Architecture, and we're going to talk about aspects, orbs, midpoints, decanates, fixed stars. Alright, so first let's start with our preface here. And if you guys aren't familiar with me, I make videos with the help of AI agents, DeepSeek, Claude, as well as Grok, Gemini, Perplexity, and I make these videos to help you guys understand astrology for free, and yeah, in a fun way. Hopefully you guys can retain this information. So we're going to go into our preface. This textbook presents an advanced integrated approach to astrological interpretation, weaving together the ancient roots of celestial omen, reading with modern midpoint techniques, decadent theory, and fixed star lore. It is designed for the serious student and practitioner who has already mastered the fundamentals of natal chart construction and basic aspect interpretation, and who now seeks to penetrate the deeper architectural layers of the horoscope. Astrology is presented here as a symbolic interpretive tradition, a system of meaning-making rooted in millennia of observation, codification, and refinement. It is not a science in the modern empirical sense, nor is it a tool for medical diagnosis, financial prediction, or psychological assessment. Its value lies in its capacity to illuminate patterns, archetypes, and cycles that resonate with the human experience. Scope and purpose. So this text covers first the historical origins of astrology from Mesopotamian omen literature through Hellenistic synthesis, and classical and newly proposed aspects with orb theories, as well as decadent theory applied to every natal planet, angle, and fixed star, midpoint varieties including ascendant and midheaven midpoint structures, fixed star conjunctions and their integration into midpoint and decadent frameworks, step-by-step integrated delineation method. So several sections of this textbook present original esoteric frameworks proposed by the author, including new aspect types, expanded orb theories, and novel midpoint varieties. These are clearly labeled as original contributions, not as historical doctrine, where established historical or technical information is presented. Sources are cited in the preface and a sources appendix. Okay. So, we also have our historical foundation sources here, which I really enjoy, and using AI, we do get to see the sources that it's pulling from, whether it's Wikipedia or Aurora Consurgens or Ptolemy's book itself, the Tetrabiblos. And next is the table of contents. There's 24 chapters, and then there's about 6 or 7 appendixes. Let me just make sure here. Yeah, there's about 7 appendixes. Okay. So beginning with origins and omens. So first we go over the Babylonian celestial omen tradition here. And the thing about this is the earliest known organized system of astrology arose in Mesopotamia during the 2nd millennium BCE. Okay. The Babylonians were the first to systematically observe and record celestial phenomena, correlating them with earthly events to create a corpus of omen literature that would shape all subsequent astrological traditions. Okay. So the foundational text of Babylonian astrology is the Enuma Anu Enlil, or EAE, we'll just call it, a vast series of 68 or 70 cuneiform tablets containing between 6,500 and 7K celestial omens, compiled in its canonical form during the Kassite period. The series probably had prototypes dating back to the Old Babylonian period. The work continued in use well into the 1st millennium, with the latest datable copy written in 194 BCE. The EAE was the principal source of omens used in regular astrological reports sent to the Neo-Assyrian kings by their entourage of scholars. Its subject matter unfolds in a structured pattern. First, the behavior of the moon, lunar omens, then solar phenomena, followed by weather and atmospheric phenomena, and finally the behavior of planets and stars. The nature of omen astrology. So Babylonian astrology was fundamentally mundane. It dealt with the fate of the king and the state, not with individual horoscopes. Very important. Prior to the 7th century BCE, the practitioners' understanding of astronomy was fairly rudimentary. Because they could not accurately predict future celestial phenomena far in advance, interpretations were made as the phenomena occurred or shortly before. The interpretational format was based on analogy and sympathetic correspondence. A blemish on the liver of a sacrificial animal was read as a symbolic sign presenting a message from the gods. Similarly, the appearance, position, or behavior of a celestial body was interpreted as an omen for the kingdom. The same interpretational format was applied consistently across both ixtis specie, liver divination, and celestial omen reading. The oldest known text of Babylonian divination, 32 tablets with inscribed liver models dating from about 1875 BCE, demonstrate the same analytical approach. Lunar omens. There's about 22 tablets. So the first 22 tablets of the EAE contain lunar omens dealing with the appearance of the moon during its successive phases, eclipses, and the moon's position relative to planets and stars. While eclipses were of particular concern, their timing, color, and the direction from which the shadow approached were all considered significant for predicting the fate of specific kingdoms and rulers. Planetary omens, from tablet 50 on, where the EAE describes planetary omens, conjunctions, risings, and settings of planets on the night sky, as well as changes in their appearance. Planets were identified with specific deities: Jupiter with Marduk, Venus with Ishtar, Mars with Nergal, Mercury with Nebu, and Saturn with Ninurta. Their movements relative to each other and the fixed stars, form the bases for omen interpretation. So the omen to horoscope transition, the critical shift from mundane omen astrology to natal horoscopic astrology occurred when Babylonian omen traditions encountered Egyptian decanal timekeeping in the cosmopolitan center of Alexandria Sea, late 2nd to early 1st century BCE. The personal horoscope, casting a chart for the moment of an individual's birth, was a Hellenistic innovation that fused Mesopotamian omen logic with Egyptian star-based time measurement. Alright, Egyptian decans and star lore. The decans are 36 groups of stars, small constellations used in ancient Egyptian astronomy to divide the 360-degree ecliptic into 36 parts of 10 degrees each, for both theurgical and heliacal chronometrical purposes. Each decan appeared geocentrically to rise consecutively on the horizon throughout each daily Earth rotation, and the rising of each decan marked the beginning of a new decanal hour of the night. The decans first appeared in the first intermediate period of Egypt on coffin lids. The sequence of these star patterns began with Sirius, Sothis, and each decan contained a set of stars and corresponding divinities. As measures of time, the rising and setting of decans marked hours and groups of 10 days, which together comprised the Egyptian year. 36 decans of 10 days each, 360 days, plus 5 epagomenal days to complete the 365-day solar year. The heliacal rising system. Because a new decan appeared heliacally every 10 days. That is, every 10 days a new decanic star group reappeared in the eastern sky at dawn. Right before sunrise, after a period of being obscured by the sun's light, the Greeks called them decanoi, quote-unquote tenths. Okay? So this predictable heliacal reappearance was used by the Egyptians to mark the divisions of their annual solar calendar. The heliacal rising of Sirius marked the annual flooding of the Nile, an event of supreme importance for Egyptian civilization. Decans as protective deities. In the Hermetic astrological texts of the Greco-Roman period, 1st through 3rd centuries CE, the decans became associated with spirits, or daimones, intermediaries between the human world and celestial realm of the planets and fixed stars. The sacred book of Hermes to Asclepius on the 36 decans, a Greek text written in the 1st century, contained instructions for making 36 magical rings, each consisting of the name and figure of an Egyptian decan deity, a specific gemstone, botanical plant, and metal to protect the wearer from bodily afflictions indicated by their natal chart. Decan house connection. The Egyptian use of decans appears to have been a precursor to the later Hellenistic doctrine of the 12 houses. The Greek term horoscopus, or hour marker for the ascendant, derives directly from the Egyptian tradition of using decans to mark the hours. The concept of a celestial body becoming more active when it reaches certain sectors of the sky, particularly the ascendant and midheaven, mirrors the Egyptian notion that decans were doing work when they reached those positions. Decans in Melothesia. Once incorporated into the Hellenistic astrological system, the decans were each assigned to various subsections of the human body in a practice called melothesia. This assignment established a tradition of creating medical astrological talismans engraved with the image of the ruling decan deity and crafted from specific materials intended to cure ailments associated with the afflicted body part. The decans were also connected with the winds, cardinal directions, the sect, day or night, gender, and the four humors, elements. Alright, Hellenistic synthesis. So, Hellenistic astrology was developed and practiced in the late Hellenistic period in and around the Mediterranean basin, especially in Egypt. It was in Alexandrian Egypt that Babylonian astrology was mixed with the Egyptian tradition of decanic astrology to create horoscopic astrology. The synthesis contained the Babylonian zodiac with its system of planetary exaltations, the triplicities of the signs, and the importance of eclipses, along with the Egyptian concept of dividing the zodiac into 36 decans of 10 degrees each, with emphasis on the rising decan. The Alexandrian conquests of the late 4th century BCE brought Greek culture, mathematics, and philosophy into contact with both Babylonian astronomy and Egyptian star lore. The resulting Hellenistic synthesis, which took shape primarily in Alexandria during the late 2nd and early 1st centuries BCE, produced what we now recognize as horoscopic astrology, which is a system that could cast a chart for the moment of an individual birth and interpret it for that person's life. That was a radical innovation. Previously, celestial omens had been interpreted only for kings and states. Alright, key Hellenistic innovations here. Dope as fuck. So the ascendant horoscope is the degree, of the ecliptic rising on the eastern horizon at the moment of birth, giving the chart its temporal anchor and naming the entire system. The 12 houses, topoi, 12 sectors of the chart representing different life areas derived from the division of the diurnal circle. Planetary rulership, the assignment of each zodiac to a planetary ruler, creating the system of dignities that remains central to astrology. The four elements, which are of course fire, earth, air, and water, assigned to groups of 3 signs integrating Greek natural philosophy. The lots, clearly calculated points, most notably the lot of fortune, derived from the relationships between the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. Ptolemy and the Tetrabiblos. So, Ptolemy, working in Alexandria, codified much of the Hellenistic astrological tradition in his Tetrabiblos 4 books. Ptolemy sought to provide a rational philosophical basis for astrology, arguing that celestial influences were transmitted through physical emanations from the planets and stars. His treatment of fixed stars in relation to planets and angles was particularly systematic, because he described how stars form significant configurations with planets when positioned on the same circle through the poles of the ecliptic, i.e., having the same ecliptic longitude, or when separated by multiples of 60 degrees, 90 degrees, or 120 degrees. For the luminaries, he specified occultations, conjunctions, and succedent risings as the key modes of interaction. Vitius Valens in the Anthology. So Vitius Valens, a contemporary of Ptolemy, authored the Anthology, a comprehensive astrological manual that preserved many techniques not found in Ptolemy's more philosophical work. Valens emphasized practical chart delineation, including the use of Time Lords, chronocraters, the distribution of years by sign, and the detailed interpretation of planetary placements by sign, house, and aspect. His work represents the practical, technique-oriented stream of Hellenistic astrology, complementing Ptolemy's theoretical strain. Right, let's go into medieval Arabic and Renaissance transmission. I'm going to grab a drink really quick. Some soda. It is very hot in my apartment. Holy shit. It is super hot in here. I'm turning the AC. God damn. Alright. Here we go. Alrighty. So, After the decline of the Hellenistic world, astrology was transmitted, preserved, and elaborated through several cultural corridors. The Byzantine East, the Islamic world, and eventually medieval and Renaissance Europe, each culture added its own contributions to the body of astrological knowledge. Persian and Arabic contributions. So, the Sasanian Persian court of the 3rd, 7th century CE was a major center of astrological learning. Texts like the Bunzi Siege and the works of Dorotheus of Sidon, transmitted via Persian translations, preserved and extended Hellenistic techniques. The Arabic translation movement of the 8th through 10th centuries brought this accumulated knowledge into the Islamic world, where scholars like Abu Mashar, Al-Kindi, and Sal ibn Bishr produced influential treatises. Abu Masar's great introduction to the science of the stars was a major source for medieval European astrology. Key Arabic Persian contributions include the system of terms, planetary bounds, refined delineation of the houses and their planetary joys, the doctrine of haze, sect-based placement, the development of Mashiri, perfection techniques for annual forecasting, and the introduction of the part of spirit alongside the Hellenistic lot of fortune. The Latin Middle Ages. So astrology entered medieval Europe primarily through translations of Arabic texts into Latin in the 12th century, particularly from centers like Toledo. Guido Bonatti, author of the Liber Astronomiae, was the most influential medieval astrologer, and his encyclopedic work codified the Arabic-Persian tradition for European readers. The scholastic tradition, represented by Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas, sought to reconcile astrology with Christian theology, arguing that the stars influence the body but not the rational soul. So that's where we get into people asking, is there freedom with astrology? Is there free will with astrology? Or do you just have to be bound to your birth chart? The Renaissance saw a flowering of astrological practice and theory. Marsilio Ficino translated the Corpus Hermeticum and wrote 3 books on life, integrating Neoplatonic and Hermetic philosophy with astrological medicine. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola's Disputationes Adversus Astrologiam Divinatricem, which is from 1486, provided the most thorough critique of astrology from within the Renaissance intellectual framework. Despite this critique, astrology remained central to Renaissance intellectual life through the work of figures like Johannes Kepler, who discovered new aspects and argued that the planets' aspects, rather than their zodiacal positions, were the primary vehicle of their influence. The modern psychological turn. So the 20th century saw astrology's transformation from a predictive art to a primarily psychological and developmental framework. Okay. This shift is associated especially with Dame Rudar, who reinterpreted the natal chart as a quote-unquote seed pattern for individual self-actualization, and with the integration of Jungian depth psychology into astrological practice. Simultaneously, the Hamburg School and cosmobiology movements maintain a more structural, midpoint-based approach, emphasizing precision and tight orbs over the psychological narrative. Alright, let's get into natal architecture, part 2 here. So we're going to talk about planets, luminaries, and points in more detail. The natal chart is constructed from the positions of celestial bodies at the precise moment and location of birth. The fundamental building blocks are the luminaries being the sun and moon, the planets Mercury through Pluto, and various calculated points, the lunar nodes, the lots, and the angles. Each carries distinct symbolic meaning and contributes to the overall architectural structure of the chart. So the luminaries, the sun represents the core identity, the conscious self, the principle of vitality and creative purpose. And the natal chart is sign placement reveals the fundamental mode of self-expression, while its house position indicates the life arena where this expression is most naturally manifested. The sun is the ruler of Leo and is exalted in Aries. The moon represents the emotional nature, the instinctual response, the capacity for receptivity and nurturing, and the unconscious pattern shaped by early experience. Its sign placement reveals the emotional temperament, while its house position shows where the individual seeks emotional security. The moon rules Cancer and is exalted in Taurus. The personal planets. Mercury governs communication, intellect, reasoning, and the capacity for connection between different domains of experience. It rules Gemini and Virgo and is exalted in Virgo. Venus governs love, beauty, harmony, values, and the principle of attraction and relationship. It rules Taurus and Libra and is exalted in Pisces. Mars governs drive, energy, assertion, desire, and the capacity for directed action. Mars rules Aries and traditionally Scorpio, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. The social planets. Jupiter represents expansion, growth, optimism, justice, philosophy, and the search for meaning. It rules Sagittarius and traditionally Pisces and is exalted in Cancer. Saturn represents structure, limitation, responsibility, discipline, and the crystallization of experience into enduring form. It rules Capricorn and traditionally Aquarius and is exalted in Libra. A trans-Saturnian planet. So Uranus, discovered in 1781, represents disruption, innovation, freedom, and sudden awakening. It's associated with Aquarius. Neptune, discovered in 1846, represents dissolution, transcendence, imagination, illusion, and the oceanic merging of boundaries. It is associated with Pisces. Pluto was discovered in 1930, and it represents transformation, power, death, and rebirth, the underworld, and the process of annihilation and renewal. It is associated with zodiac sign Scorpio. Lunar nodes. So Rahu, the north node of the moon, Dragon's Head, and Ketu, south node of the moon, Dragon's Tail. These are points. Are the points where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic. So Rahu indicates the direction of evolutionary growth, the qualities and experiences the soul is called to develop in this lifetime, while Ketu indicates innate tendencies, past patterns, and the comfort zone that may need to be transcended together. They describe an axis of development. The lots, Arabic parts. So the lot of fortune, or LOF, is calculated as the ascendant adding the moon subtracting the sun for day births, or ascendant adding the sun subtracting the moon for night births. It represents the body, material fortune, and the circumstances that happen to the native. The lot of spirit, or the LOS, is the ascendant adding the sun subtracting the moon for day births, and it represents the soul, vocation, and what the native does. Additional lots can be calculated for marriage, children, career, and other life themes. So we say lots, or the Arabic parts. Alright, let's talk about signs, houses, modalities, and elements. So the zodiac consists of 12 signs of 30 degrees each, beginning at the vernal equinox, 0 degrees Aries in the tropical zodiac. Each sign is classified by element, whether it's fire, earth, air, and water, and modality, whether it's cardinal, fixed, or mutable, creating a systematic framework for understanding planetary expression. Okay, so we have the elements here: signs, core principle, and expression. Okay, so for example, fire, the fire element, it's Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Core principles: spirit, inspiration, action, and expression, being enthusiastic, creative, and pioneering. Earth sign, the earth element, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, matter, form, practicality, grounded, productive, resourceful. Air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, the air element, intellect, communication, relationship, mental, social, conceptual. And water element, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, emotion, intuition, empathy, sensitive, deep, and receptive. The modalities. So, for example, cardinal, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, initiation, leadership, starts, directs, pioneers. Fixed, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, stabilization, endurance, sustains, maintains, concentrates. And mutable, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, adaptation, transition, adjusts, mediates, and transforms. So the 12 houses represent the 12 sectors of the chart that correspond to different life arenas. They are derived from the division of the diurnal circle relative to the horizon and meridian of the birth location. So the angles of 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses are the most powerful, while the sessident houses, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th, are moderate, and the cadent houses, 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th, are the least prominent. So for example, that first house is the self, identity, appearance, physical body, and vitality. Second house is your possessions, resources, values, earning capacity, is self-worth. Third house is communication, siblings, neighbors, short journeys, early education. Fourth house, roots, home, family, parents, foundations, inner base, your ancestry. 5th house, creativity, children, romance, creative expression, and pleasure. The 6th house, service, work, health, daily routine, service to others. The 7th house is partnership, marriage, contracts, open enemies, one-to-one relations. The 8th house is transformation, shared resources, death, regeneration, occult studies. The 9th house is philosophy, higher education, long journeys, religion, and law. The 10th house is vocation, career, public standing, reputation, and authority. The 11th house is community, friends, groups, hopes, ideals, social network. And the 12th house is the unconscious, isolation, hidden matters, retreat, and self-undoing. Alright, now let's get into the angles as living axis. So the 4 angles of the chart, the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and Amum Coli, or the MC and IC, constitute the structural skeleton of the horoscope. They are the most sensitive points in the chart, and any planet or fixed star conjunct an angle is dramatically elevated in significance. The angles are not static points, but living axes that describe fundamental polarities in the native's life. So let's talk about the ascendant descendant axes, or the ASC DSC axes. So the ascendant is the degree of the ecliptic rising on the eastern horizon at the moment of birth. It is the most personal point in the chart, representing the self as perceived by others, the lens through which the native encounters the world and the physical body and its vitality. The sign on the ascendant, the rising sign, colors the entire chart with its quality, while the descendant, or the DSC, directly opposite, represents the quote-unquote other, partners, opponents, and the qualities the native seeks or attracts in relationships. So the MC-IC axes, or midheaven, Imum Coli. The midheaven MC is the highest point of the ecliptic above the horizon at the moment of birth, corresponding to the 10th house cusp, represents the native's public standing, vocation, authority, and the most visible achievement in the world, while the Imum Coli IC, directly opposite, represents the deepest, most private self, the roots, the home, ancestry, the family foundation, and psychological base from which a native grows. I'd even go as far as to say your karmic backlogs and your karmic wounds in regards to generational trauma is the IC, the 4th house cusp. So the angular cross. 4 angles form a cross that divides the chart into 4 quadrants. This angular cross is the primary structural framework of the horoscope. Planets near angles are said to be angular and are the most powerful in the chart. The angles also serve as sensitive points for transit and progression work. A transit to an angle often marks a significant life event or a turning point. Okay? So original framework here, angular resonance theory, ART. This text proposes that the 4 angles function not merely as sensitive points, but as resonant chambers that amplify and modulate any celestial body conjunct them. The amplification factor varies by angle. The ascendant amplifies identity and physical manifestation. The MC amplifies public expression and achievement. The IC amplifies depth and rootedness. The DSC amplifies relational dynamics. A planet conjunct an angle is not just quote-unquote strong, it is tuned to a specific frequency of manifestation. Furthermore, the orbs for angular conjunctions are proposed to be larger than for interplanetary conjunctions, up to 5 degrees for the ascendant and MC, 3 degrees for the descendant and IC, reflecting the different volume of each angular chamber. Alright, aspects and orbs. More detail. It's like not stopping till you learn astrology. I made that, and I've unlisted a lot of my videos. I had over 900, now I just have a little over 600. But yeah, I just want to make more videos dedicated to astrology instead of random content, because the algorithm's, I guess, getting confused with me. I'm also not just, any old body, so I can't just make easy money like every other random on here. So aspects and orbs. Classical Ptolemaic aspects. Aspects are the angular relationships between celestial bodies in the chart, okay? The 5 classical Ptolemaic aspects derived from the division of the circle by 2, 3, 4, and 6 have been the foundation of aspect interpretation since antiquity. They describe the geometric relationship between planetary energies and whether they flow harmoniously, create tension, or require integration. So we have our aspects here: angle, harmonic, symbol, and nature. So for a conjunction aspect, 0 degrees angle, first harmonic, bringing unification and fusion. It's like the nature is like a midpoint nature, you know, like how there's two things in one. So opposition aspect 180 degrees, that second harmonic tension and polarity, a trine 120 degrees. Oop. Third harmonic, harmony flow, square 90 degrees, fourth harmonic, conflict friction, and sextile 60 degrees, sixth harmonic, opportunity cooperation. So the conjunction 0 degrees, it represents the fusion of two planetary energies into a single concentrated force. When two planets occupy the same degree, or nearly so, their functions merge. The nature of the conjunction depends on the planets involved. Benefic planets, Venus, Jupiter, in conjunction create ease and grace, while malefic planets, Mars, Saturn, create intensity and challenge. Conjunctions in the same sign are the most powerful, but conjunctions across sign boundaries, out-of-sign conjunctions, are also significant, particularly when they involve planets with compatible natures. The opposition 180 degrees excuse me, creates a dynamic tension between two opposing forces. Represents the principle of polarity, self and other, inner and outer, conscious and unconscious. The opposition demands awareness and integration. The native must learn to hold both ends of the axis simultaneously, often by projecting one end onto others before recognizing it within. Oppositions are inherently relational and often manifest through encounters with others who carry the opposing energy. The trine, 120 degrees. It represents natural harmony, ease, and flowing energy between two planets, always connecting signs of the same element. It indicates innate talent and effortless expression. However, the very ease of the trine can lead to complacency. Talents that are natural may be taken for granted and underdeveloped. The trine's challenge is to translate passive ease into active accomplishment. The square, 90 degrees, represents internal conflict, friction, and the need for creative resolution between two planetary forces, always connecting signs of the same modality. Creates tension that demands action while often experienced as difficult. Squares are the primary engine of growth in the chart as they generate the friction necessary for achievement. The square forces the native to develop the conflicting energies rather than passively accepting them. Sextile, 60 degrees. Represents opportunity and cooperation between two planets, connecting signs of complementary elements, fire, air, or earth, water. It is gentler than the trine and requires conscious effort to activate. The sextile offers potential that must be deliberately seized. It does not unfold automatically like the trine, but rewards initiative. Minor and harmonic aspects. Beyond the 5 classical aspects, the tradition has developed a range of minor aspects based on further divisions of the circle. These aspects are subtler in their effects and typically require tighter orbs to be effective. The concept of harmonic astrology, systematized by John Addy, provides a theoretical framework for understanding all aspects as divisions of the 360-degree circle by whole numbers. So, semi-sextile with an angle of 30 degrees, the 12th harmonic, subtle adjustment, mild friction. Semi-square, angle of 45 degrees, the 8th harmonic, internal tension, irritation. Sesquiquadrate, 135 degrees, angle, 8th harmonic, persistent friction, creative pressure. Quincunx, 150 degrees, angle, 12th harmonic, awkward adjustment, blind spot. Quintile, 72 degrees of an angle, 5th harmonic, creative talent, artistic ability. Biquintile, 144 degrees, angle, 5th harmonic, creative integration, mastery. Septile, 51 degrees, 25, angle, 7th harmonic, fate, spiritual imperative. And novile, 40 degrees, angle, 9th harmonic, inner realization and gestation. Inner realization and gestation, sorry about that. Alright. Continuing on to the harmonic series itself. So, Addy's harmonic theory posits that each whole number division of the circle, quote-unquote, the harmonic, represents a distinct level of cosmic ordering. The first harmonic, 360 degrees divided by 1 equals conjunction. It's a fundamental unity. The second harmonic, 180 degrees, represents duality. The third, 120 degrees, represents Trinitarian creativity. Higher harmonics, the fifth, 72 degrees. The seventh, 51 degrees, 26. The ninth, 40 degrees, and beyond represent increasingly subtle, spiritualized modes of expression. The seventh harmonic is associated with mystical and fated experiences. The ninth with inner gestation and spiritual insight. The quintile family. So, the quintile, 72 degrees, and biquintile, 144 degrees, are aspects of the fifth harmonic associated with creative genius and artistic ability. They are often prominent in the charts of artists, innovators, and individuals with exceptional creative talent. The quintile represents the capacity to create something new and original, while the biquintile represents the integration and mastery of that creative capacity. The quincunx, 150 degrees, also called the inconjunct, connects signs that share neither element nor modality, creating a relationship of fundamental incompatibility that requires constant adjustment. It is often experienced as a blind spot, an area where the native cannot easily see the connection between two parts of their life and must learn to integrate them through conscious effort rather than natural affinity. Alright. We're not quite finished yet. I am going to make a part 2 to this video, and I'll see you there with peace and love. Piscean out.